everyone. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining, and thank you to everyone who joined last week. Thank you to everyone who left comments on the video and shared your feedback with me. I really appreciate all of it. The topic of this week is about moods and what they are and how we can change our mood. And this is especially apropos for this time of year, which is today we're Vav Menachem Av, which is 3 days before Tisha B'Av. And we know how important it is to try to transform the negativity of Tisha B'Av and make it like more positive and more happy and more joyous. So that's what we're going to be discussing, how we can create a positive frame of mind, how we can create a positive mood around ourselves, and actually choose the mood that we want to project the same way that we choose our clothing. Okay, so just to start off with an introduction, what exactly are moods? So there's really not a very specific definition of what is a mood. It's described sort of like a predisposition or state of mind or a tendency to experience a certain type of emotion. So in order to understand this a little better, let's do a comparison between a mood and an emotion. So an emotion is more like an immediate reaction to something that happened. So for example, the bottle of grape juice spilled. It fell off the table, it broke all over the floor, now there's a big mess. Maybe my initial reaction could be fear, it could be shock, could be anger, it could be aggravation, irritation. It could be a lot of different emotions. Usually it happens pretty quickly. We're usually able to identify the event that caused that emotion. And usually it's not very long lasting. It might last seconds to minutes. Probably an hour later, you're not having the same emotional reaction to the grape juice spilling that you had an hour ago, right when it happened. So usually emotions are relatively quick reactions to something that just happened. You're usually able to connect the emotion with the triggering event, and it usually does not last very long. But a mood is more like a predisposition to experience a certain emotion or a certain feeling, and that can be much longer lasting. And it's also harder to pinpoint, like, what caused me to be in this mood. What triggered it? Was it something that happened? Was it something that somebody said? Was it, what was it exactly? It can be really hard to identify what exactly the triggering event was. So, and moods can be both positive or negative. Sometimes something happened that puts us in a very good mood. Sometimes we're in a more negative mood. Now, what causes us to be in a certain mood? Why some days we wake up in a more, one frame of mind, another day we wake up in a different frame of mind. So it can sometimes be really hard to identify. It can be very hard to recognize what were the triggers. And it's sort of like a chicken and egg question. So going back to the example of the grape juice spilling. So is it that I reacted to the grape juice spilling because I'm in a bad mood, or am I now in a bad mood because the grape juice spilled? What caused what? So it's sort of like when we're already in a certain mindset to experience a certain mood, then those emotions will be triggered more readily. So we're like more predisposed to either notice negative triggers and react to negative triggers when we're already in a more of a down mood. So there's a famous story of the Baal Shem Tov that illustrates this. So one of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov once came to him and he said that it says that every year on Rosh Hashanah we're judged how much parnasa we're going to get, but there's another place that it says that a person is judged each and every day. So how do we explain? Are we judged every day, or are we judged on Rosh Hashanah? So the Baal Shem Tov said that he said, come with me. I want you to meet this water carrier, and then you'll have the answer to your question. So they go and they meet the water carrier. He's this old man. He's very bent over. He's carrying these heavy pails of water. And Baal Shem Tov says good morning to him, and he asks him, how are you doing? And he said, oy vey. He's complaining, these pails are so heavy and my back is hurting and I'm hardly even earning any money from this, and the children, they run after me and they make fun of me and sometimes they even tip over my pails. So he's just really, really upset. Then the next day, Baal Shem Tov tells the student again, come with me, and he takes him, and again he sees the water carrier. And he says to the water carrier, how are you? And he said, Baruch Hashem, I know I'm old, but I still have the strength. I'm able to carry these pails of water. And, the money, okay, it's not so good, but at least it's able to cover my basics. And what about the children? Oh, yeah, I can handle them. They're just children. They don't understand. So the Baal Shem Tov tells his student, you see, your question was just answered. So he said, how? He said, what is determined on Rosh Hashanah is what's going to be your lot for that year. So this man's lot was to be a water carrier. But how he's going to react to it and how he's going to feel about it, that he's judged every single day. So one day, it's unmanageable, unbearable. He's in such a bad state of mind. The other day, yeah, I can manage. It's okay. I can get through it. So we see that our moods can change. Our moods can be different from day to day. What are the triggers exactly? Like I said, it can be hard to pinpoint, but we do know that there are certain things that can make our mood be better or worse. Now, before I even get into that, I want to go back, to an important point that we brought up a lot in last week's video, which is, this class is really about taking away guilt, shame, blame, fear messages around our parenting and around our lifestyle in general. And when we talk about moods and being in a good mood or being in a bad mood and how much control we have over our moods, I don't want it to come across in a negative way that if you are in a bad mood, then it is your fault, and to have guilt about our guilt. I feel guilty, but I feel guilty that I'm feeling guilty. I feel ashamed, but I feel ashamed of myself that I'm feeling shame, or blame, and I'm blaming someone else for why I'm blaming them. Sometimes you have in a couple, the reason I blame my husband is because he blames me for everything. So we're blaming each other. Fear, I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I don't get out of this bad mood. So the idea is not to have guilt, shame, blame, fear messages about our mood. We can talk about things that contribute to our mood and that can help us, but it's not meant, to be interpreted as it's your fault if you are, in a more negative mindset. So we're gonna talk more about that as we get through this class. So what are some things that affect mood? So there's biological factors, sleep, like if you slept well, if you didn't, nutrition, how well you're eating, if you're getting enough exercise, getting enough fresh air, if you have any kind of illness, chronic pain, all these things can affect your ability to be in a positive frame of mind. Also, another thing is our environment, our situation. It could be current stressors, current things that are going on that are making me feel under stress, making me feel worried. It could be my financial situation. It could be difficulties in a relationship. So things that are currently going on that can affect my mood. It could also be past stressors, like if I had any kind of history of trauma or I have an unresolved conflict in a past relationship. These can all affect our mood. And then there's also personality factors. We all have an innate disposition. If you remember last week, we talked about the Eish Ruach Mayim Afar personalities, which is straight from Parak Aleph and Tanya. We're all born with a certain character. We're all born with a certain disposition that may predispose us to certain types of moods. So an Afar type, the quality associated with Afar is more depressed, atzlos, so there is a personality type that just tends to be a little more down, tends to have a little more difficulty when things don't go their way. They're just more prone to those kind of thoughts. Mayim personality. What's Mayim? Mayim Matzmichim Komini Tainug. People who handle stress by self-indulgence. They have cravings, or they go out shopping, or they go out for coffee whenever they're under stress. So they look for some way to give themselves pleasure. That's their way of handling stress. That's their reaction to stress. That's their coping mechanism. Then you have the Ruach personality. Ruach is more like the air, the fun. They may make light of the situation. They may try to disengage, disconnect, distract themselves. So that's the Ruach style, the Ruach way of coping. And then the Eish may be the explosive personality, the type that's more prone to outbursts and anger. So these are all natural predispositions. It doesn't mean we can't control it, but it means that we may have a tendency in a certain direction. And when we have these combination of all these factors, the physical factors, the emotional factors, environmental factors, personal innate character, these all kind of combine together for, how it's going to produce a certain type of mood. And when we're in a certain type of mood, it may affect what we notice, what we pay attention to, what triggers are going to affect us. It can also, like when we're predisposed, like the rumination, like repeating certain thoughts or repeating certain experiences over and over in your head, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, I can't believe they said this, I can't believe they did that. And when these thoughts keep like running through your head and we don't, get control over those thoughts, that can lead to, a long-term negative mood. So, when we are, like I said, when we're in a negative mindset already, so it does make it a little harder to hold it together when we're exposed to a certain stimulus. Maybe on certain days, there are things that are okay, I can handle it, I can deal with it. Other days, it's just, okay, this is above my head, I just, I cannot cope. So, for example, a baby's kvetchy. Some days, I get through it, I'm okay. I can handle the baby, I can soothe the baby, I put the baby down, and maybe on other days, in combination with everything else going on, all of a sudden it's intolerable, I cannot handle this. Or, it could be some kind of irritant, there's construction noise outside, it's too hot, it's too cold, there's, this couch is too soft, or this couch is too hard, or whatever. Like little things, little irritants that normally I would be okay with, normally I'd be able to handle. All of a sudden, there's certain days when it's just like too much, it's overload, and I just cannot, deal with these things. Now, another important aspect of our mood is it doesn't just affect how we handle, how we deal with things that are happening, but it also affects other people, because our moods interact with the moods that other people are experiencing. So if your child's in a kvetchy mood, and then you add to that you woke up in a kvetchy mood, and now we have, this combination. And, whenever we're in a group of people, so groups of people tend to generate their own mood. And so that's what's really important about like trying to actively learn how we can control our mood, how we can decide on a mood, how we can project a certain mood, because that way, first of all, it helps us to be in a better mindset, but it also makes easier all our interactions and relationships with other people, because then we're not like feeding off their negative energy. We're able to put out a more positive energy. So, like for example, when you're really focusing, like I'm going to try to put out a friendly mood. And I walk into a situation, let's say it's a meeting, or let's say I'm going to the store, or I'm, going to a classroom, whatever it is. And I come in with my positive energy, and I'm saying hi, and I'm being friendly, and somebody gives me that, unfriendly, grumpy look. So if I was not actively trying to produce a certain mood, I might right away take that other person's mood personally. I might say, oh, why is he being so grumpy? Why is he giving me that look? Is it something I did? Is it something I said? Is it the way I look? Is it the way I'm dressed? And you start thinking about all these things. But if you come in and I am projecting a happy, positive mindset, and he's giving me a grumpy look, I know that has to do with that person. It has nothing to do with me. So being more conscious of what kind of mood I want to produce, what kind of mood I want to project, actually makes it easier for us to handle, the negative moods from others, because we know it's not about me, it's about them. Okay, so how much can we influence or affect or control our moods? And like I said before, it's really, really important to avoid guilt, shame, blame, fear messages about our moods. We don't want to make people feel like they're to blame, you're to blame for being in a bad mood, or to blame for feeling depressed, or to blame for feeling anxious, etc. Now, I want to make clear also, like, I'm not talking about people who have clinical depression, clinical anxiety, people who are in the real extremes, like very prolonged bad mood, or a bad mood to the extent that you really cannot function, you really cannot get up, you really are having like constant, negative thoughts. I'm really talking to people that are more in the middle of the range. I'm not really talking to the extremes. And if anyone is in that, category, there is help out there. And everybody, as I said in the last class, if anyone is currently receiving any kind of therapy or is on any kind of medication, whatever treatment you're receiving, that should continue. It's really important to get the proper help, but I'm not speaking to the people who are on those extremes. I'm really speaking more to the middle ground. And sometimes, the messages that we get, in a way to kind of avoid stigma and avoid blame around our moods, is to go to the opposite extreme and be like, oh, this is all biological, this is all caused by physical factors, there's really nothing you can do, it's really not your fault. So we don't want to go to the other extreme to say that because it's not your fault, therefore there's nothing you can do. So I want to say that the predisposition, the tendency to be in certain moods and certain frames of mind and certain states, that is not in your control, but there is a lot that you can do in order to help yourself and in order to bring yourself up from a mood. Now, I want to share something that I learned from Rebbetzin Heller, Alav Shalom, that our range of the Bechira Chafshis that each person has, is within a small range. Like, we all have freedom of choice within a certain limited area. My choice, the range of my choice is not the same as your free choice. So if you see somebody who always seems down, always seems depressed, and then one day they're able to, get up and put their shoes on, that for them could be as big of an accomplishment as another person climbing Mount Everest. So it's really important to keep that in mind. Like, where our starting point is, what resources we have, internal resources, external resources. This is all going to affect how we're going to be able to, get some kind of control over our moods. It's not about, blaming, shaming, putting guilt on anyone for having a certain mood, for being in a more negative state of mind. And so instead of, using a word like control, let's think of like maybe words that are a little more like acknowledging like the struggle that people have. So talk about factors that influence our mood, factors that impact our mood, the impact that our mood is having on others. How can we adapt? I might have to adapt my response depending on the day, depending on what's going on. I may have to learn how to adapt to the situation, think about what are my choices in this situation, what are the possibilities in this situation. If certain days I wake up and I really am not feeling very functional, I have maybe certain limits. I may not be able to accomplish as much as I would have planned, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing I could do. It doesn't mean I'm helpless. It doesn't mean I'm hopeless. There's always some area of choice within the framework that we're given. Okay, so with that introduction, we can start discussing like what are some of the things that we can do to improve our mood, improve the mood in our home, and improve the way that we respond to our moods and to other people's moods. So remember we talked about, opening up your closet and you have your clothing, and we all have, different clothes in our wardrobe. You may have your weekday clothes, you may have your Shabbos clothes, your work clothes, your clothes to clean the floor with. We have different outfits depending on the occasion. And sometimes we have an occasion that we have to go to. Maybe it's a simcha and I'm really not in the mood, but just from the act of getting myself ready, just from the act of, taking a shower and putting on my outfit, and maybe if you do makeup or if you do sheitel, whatever extras you do, and then slowly, just by the process of getting yourself dressed up, you're getting yourself more into that frame of mind, and you're getting yourself more into that mindset in order to go to that simcha. So I say that we can do the same thing with our moods. When I wake up in the morning and right away I sense that my mood is down, I can go to my closet, my mental closet of moods, and I can choose and I can decide, this is the mood that I'm going to project today. This is the mood that I need today. And it does take extra effort. Yes, I'm not denying it can be hard. It can be difficult. Remember, sometimes we just put the little effort in. There's this famous story of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, and he found this precious stone, and he wanted to bring it as a gift to the Beis Hamikdash, but it was very, very heavy. And first he found these workers, and they wanted to charge him a lot of money in order to bring it. He didn't have the money. And then a group of Malachim came. They said they'll do it for like a very cheap price. And they said, just put your hand under. Just put your hand under. And he found himself in Yerushalayim. So sometimes that's what Hashem asks. Put your hand out, put your hand under, make a small effort, and then Hashem is going to, glide the path along for us. So that's something to keep in mind. Even when I'm in the worst possible mood, there is some small area where I can make some small move, and I can pick myself up even a little bit, even an inch, and then I get some keiches from Hashem to be able to get over the hurdle. So I want to go through different types of emotions, different types of moods, and discuss how we can counteract them and how we can bring out our inner keiches in order to cope with them. So there's two things to remember. So first of all, our moods do not only affect ourselves, they also affect other people, especially our children. So it's really, really important to make that effort, even when it's really hard. We do have to think about the effects of our moods on someone else, and how there's that whole chain effect. I'm in a bad mood, then it makes my child into a bad mood, and then my child might go to school and be grumpy, and then the teacher's affected, and the rest of the class is affected. And I can kind of stop that in its tracks, just by being mindful of my own mood, the mood that I create. And again, the intention is not to, make anyone feel bad or guilty, just to understand the power and the importance of, working on this, just putting in the effort, putting in the work. It might be slow, it might be a process, but we're going to learn these tools, we're going to learn these skills, and the more we practice them, the more we're able to put them into effect. So, it's about understanding that what we do affects other people. So we're going to do everything that we can, everything that it's in our power in order to help other people. Now, some people just have like that natural gift that they're able to project or create a certain mood. They just intuitively know how to do that. We see sometimes people are very, very young, 16, 17-year-olds, and they're running a whole camp, and everyone has everyone's attention, and they can just do it automatically. They just know how. They just have that sense. And other people, they just can't. They don't know how. And, you might have had negative experiences where you tried and you maybe had not a good response from other people. You really tried because you didn't know, you didn't have these tools. They need to be spelled out. We need to, have them broken down. Not everybody has that innate sense. And if you don't have that innate sense, it's okay. We can learn. We can start wherever we're at, and we can go step by step, build it up until we can learn how to create that mood. At the beginning, we may not get, the full response that we want to get from other people, but slowly we're doing it. We're doing it l'shem shamayim. We're doing it, and we will have that siyata d'shmaya. Hashem will help us along to be able to create the more positive mood and environment in our home. So last week, remember, we talked about the 7 midos, which are our 7 superpowers, keiches hanefesh, and it's very important to define, keiches hanefesh means we all have them. If we say, gevura means strength, oh, I don't have any, I'm not a strong person. Well, you have gevura, therefore you have strength inside of you. Maybe you're not used to bringing it out, maybe you haven't really been in practice, but you have gevura inside of you. Tiferes is the beauty or the understanding. I don't really have that much understanding. I'm not such an empathetic, intuitive person. No, you have that in you. You have the ability, and you just have to learn how to bring it out. and so on for all the midas. We all have all those midas in us already. They're already there. They're just waiting for us to figure out a tool how we can bring it out in that situation. So that's what we're going to talk about now. So the general rule is whatever the midah, whatever the mood that is that you're feeling, if it's a negative mood, you have to look at what is the opposite quality and try to bring that out. So that's the midah that you need to call upon. So we're going to go through, each of the midas so you'll understand what I mean. So what is the midah of chesed? So chesed is that kindness, that flow, infinite, brachas from Hashem is just flowing. Think of an ocean, think of the sky, just very, very expansive, just flowing, infinite brachas from Hashem. When is it that we need this feeling of just infinite blessing and flow? It could be when we're trying to meet someone else's need. Like, for example, I'm waking up at night to take care of a baby. I have to wake up, so I have to tap in to that feeling of infinite giving and love. Maybe there's someone else I'm trying to help, and maybe it's not so easy to help them. Maybe, it's difficult, it's frustrating, but I'm trying to meet someone else's need. I'm trying to help somebody. So I tap into that midah of chesed, that love, that kindness, that boundless, overflowing chesed. When is another time I might need the midah of chesed? So let's say I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling worried. There's not enough money in the bank. I don't know if I have the ability, I don't know if I have the energy to be able to do this project or to help this person. When we feel like worried, anxious, am I enough? Do I have enough? Is there going to be enough for me? If I share with somebody else, is there going to be enough left over for me? Whenever we have these fears of worries, a feeling of lack, that's when we need to call out the midah of chesed. That's when we need to call upon ourselves. Hashem has everything. Hashem is infinite. Hashem is kind. Hashem will provide through His channel. He will provide all the brachas that I need. That's when we really need to draw out from within ourselves the midah of chesed. Okay, let's go to the midah of gevura. When do we need the midah of gevura? What mood do we need to really draw out the midah of gevura? So let's go back to what we talked about last week. Gevura does not mean criticism, does not mean harshness, does not mean punishment. That's what we often associate with gevura, but that's not what it is. Gevura means strength to deal with something difficult. So when I'm in a situation where I have to face something really, really difficult, something really, really hard, maybe I have to confront somebody and I'm not comfortable with that, because I'm not a confrontational person, but I have to have a difficult conversation with someone. I have to set a boundary, and I don't like setting boundaries. I'm not the type. I'm scared, or maybe I'm feeling weak. Maybe I'm feeling vulnerable. Maybe I'm feeling attacked by somebody. And I have to stand up for myself, not in a way that comes across as aggressive, but just comes across as firm. So these are all areas where I need to call in myself the midah of gevura. It's hard. It's something that goes against my character, it's difficult, but I have the strength in me to be able to do something that's hard. The midah of gevura, think about it as fire, power. I have power inside of me. Maybe I don't always access it, maybe I'm not always tapped into it, but we all have a source of power inside of ourselves, which is from Hashem. And sometimes the more difficult our situation is, the deeper we have to go in ourselves to find that gevura, to find that power to be able to overcome it. So I'm going to give it a personal example. So last year, between Purim and Pesach of last year, I went through a very, very difficult situation. It started right before Purim. Baruch Hashem, the week after Pesach was over, it was already resolved, and Baruch Hashem had a very good, happy ending. But during those 4 weeks were very, very difficult, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And of course, the 4 weeks between Purim and Pesach are the most stressful, the most difficult times for a woman, a mother. And I knew, if I'm going to start dwelling on the situation that I was in and what's going to happen and start dwelling on those thoughts, I'm going to fall apart completely, not going to be able to get ready for Pesach, not be able to do anything. So I had to use a lot of gevura to kind of shut those thoughts down. I can't go there right now. I can't go there. I can't afford to go there, because otherwise I'm not going to be able to hold together. So I had to really clamp down on those thoughts. And that was the gevura. And Baruch Hashem, it completely resolves. Baruch Hashem. Very blessed. But that's an example of gevura. When I'm in a situation that's really, really, really difficult, and I just have to clamp down very, very hard and take a very, very firm and strong stance, either with myself or with another person. But I just have to find that power inside of me to get through a very, very difficult situation. That is the midah of gevura. And the more weak and vulnerable we feel, the more we have to call upon the midah of gevura within ourselves. Okay, the next midah is the midah of tiferes, which means beauty and harmony. Remember, the midah of tiferes is Yom Shlishi. Day 2 was the day that Hashem created machlekes, when Hashem separated between the waters above and the waters below. So that created division, machlekes. There's a difference between elyonim and tachtonim. And Hashem did not say kitayv on Yom Sheni. On Yom Shlishi is when there was unity in creation. The third day, when the trees and the grass and the flowers and everything started to grow, that represents the unity between elyonim and tachtonim. The rain comes down from above, it waters the earth, and then the earth starts producing the trees and the grass and the flowers. So if you can just imagine a beautiful field of grass, or a beautiful field with flowers, or a vegetable garden, or trees, just like that blooming, that beautiful, growing, vibrant nature, that's the midah of tiferes. And it represents the unity between above and below, or the unity between two extremes. When we're able to hold two opposite thoughts in our head, we're able to see two opposite perspectives at the same time. When do we need that gevura the most? That midah the most. When do we need that tiferes the most? Could be when we're angry. When I'm very angry, I'm not seeing the other side. I am not seeing the other perspective. I am only able to see my perspective. When I am very angry is when I have to call upon the midah of tiferes. When life seems very unfair, I don't understand why this is happening. It's not fair that this is happening. The midah of tiferes is being able to see two sides of the coin. Yes, maybe, this isn't fair, yes, but there could be a purpose to it. To be able to have that understanding and clarity, being able to see two sides of the coin, two different perspectives at the same time. Remember, whenever we're in a disagreement with another person, their perspective could be totally different than mine. Maybe in their perception, I'm the one that's wrong. In my perception, they're wrong. So being able to stop that train of thought, being able to see somebody else's perspective, that's the midah of tiferes. Sometimes when we're in a very emotional state, we're very angry, we're very upset, we're not ready yet to go out and talk to the other person and hear them out and hear their perspective. Sometimes I need to take the time for myself. I need to calm myself down. That's still the midah of tiferes, because you're acknowledging, I'm really upset right now, but my upsetness and my anger at this situation may not be like fully the full perspective, the full picture. Once I'm ready to hear or listen or see another person's perspective, that doesn't mean I 100% agree with you. That doesn't mean you are right and I am wrong. But usually there's some kind of each of our sides has some truth to it, and that's the midah of tiferes, when you're able to see both sides. So the more we feel angry, the more we feel that life is unfair, that's the more when we need to call upon the midah of tiferes to find the balance, find the harmony, being able to see both perspectives at the same time. Okay, what's midah number 4? Midah of netzach. We also talked about this last week. The determination. It means literally victory. I'm going to see this through to the end. It can be when I have a big project and I'm just trying to get through it. I'm trying to get it done. It's Erev Yantif. We're just trying to get all our tasks done. When do we need most the midah of netzach? It could be when I'm feeling overwhelmed. It could be when I'm almost at the end of a project and just get the finish line. It's so hard, and I've already, invested so much and I can't let it go, but it's just so hard sometimes to just get over that final hurdle. Just a little bit more effort, a little bit more, just getting straight to, to get through to the task when you're not in a dramatic state, you're just more really, really focused on the task, on the job that has to be done. Now, the midah of netzach also has that element of competitiveness. to want to win at all costs. And the Rebbe once wrote in a letter to somebody that we have to be very, very careful not to invoke the midah of netzach in somebody else. Like when you're having a disagreement, and once you invoke the midah of netzach, like that's it, it's all over, because that person's just going to want to win, and there's just no talking, there's no reasoning, there's no resolving, just the midah of netzach. And we see that a lot, when a parent and a child get into a power struggle, we really have to be careful not to get locked into these battles, and to decide, if this is really important right now. Sometimes when we're too task-oriented, we're too goal-oriented with the child, sometimes we just have to be able to slow down and be able to decide how important this task is right now, and can I do it a different way, and can I do something else right now. Trying to get out the door in the morning and my child doesn't want to put on their shoes, and so what am I going to do? And put on your shoes? No, I'm not putting on my shoes. Back and forth. Maybe they can go without shoes. Maybe I'll just let them go with the other shoes, the Shabbos shoes, which I really would rather not, but let's just get it done. So really that being able to sense when to push for something, when to pull back because of some higher goal, that's all part of the midah of netzach. We don't need to win every battle. Sometimes we need to pick, we need to choose, we need to figure it out. And especially if we have a very, very strong-willed child, where every single day feels like a battle, and we don't want to turn that into a battle, that could be, figuring out, using our midah of netzach to engage and decide, that it should be in a planned way, instead of just kind of falling into these situations. Netzach is I'm planning out the day in advance. I know that this is going to be a difficulty. I know that this situation might come up. I know that if we try to do the shopping in the morning, excuse me, that might work out better than if we do it in the afternoon, or this time of day, that time of day, this time of week, that time of week. Really trying to plan and come up with contingencies. That's also part of netzach, because it's that planning and just being focused on our goal. Of course, sometimes we can't, figure out every single contingency in advance. We do what we can, but a lot of times just with a little more planning, it can help get through some of these really tough situations. Okay, midah number 5 is the midah of Haid. We talked a lot about this last week. Gratitude, joy, blessing, feeling blessed for everything that we have. And when do we need this most? It's when we feel irritated or aggravated over little things, over Kleinigkeiten. Nothing major is going on, no major disaster, but in our minds it feels like it's a major disaster. And we're just feeling that irritable, aggravated mood. So I'll give you an example when the midah of Haid was very helpful. So yesterday I'm in the ice cream shop with my kids, and it's a very long line, and it's a hot day. I was on my feet a whole day, and we're doing some shopping. We're buying some candy for a party, and the line is really, really long, and I have kids pulling at me, "Mommy, can we buy that? Mommy, can we buy that?" And it started I started feeling very irritated, and then I stopped, and I thought, nothing's wrong. We're in an ice cream store, which is a nice, pleasant activity. We're buying candy for a birthday party, which is a nice, happy event. So nothing's wrong. So then, where is this irritation coming from? Okay, so yes, it was a long day, and yes, I was standing on my feet, and yes, I'm starting to get hot and tired, and the kids, are being a little demanding. But this is a time to bring out the midah of Haid, feeling all the good and the positive. And this really is, a lot of stress comes up, when we're preparing for a simcha or preparing for yantif. There's something called eustress, stress that comes from good things, good events, positive events. Even positive, happy events do come along with a lot of stress. So when we kick in the midah of Yesod, instead of feeling that irritability and that stress, we can change it to experience the joy in the situation, experience the happiness, experience all that I have to be grateful for. Wow, I have a simcha. A new baby was born. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for a few weeks or a few months. You're going to be more tired. You're going to be more crabby. There's things, you're going to have to wake up in the middle of the night. These are all, yes, this is all part of it, but on the other hand, wow, there's a new baby born. This is a simcha. This is a positive. This is a happy event. Again, it's not that voice shaming you for for being stressed, but it's also a voice that, it helps you to slow down and say, yeah, I'm feeling stressed right now, but I'm lucky and I'm fortunate to be stressed over this, over this type of event. Stressed because I'm in an ice cream store and the kids want every candy, So Baruch Hashem for that kind of stress. I'm stressed because I'm making a chasana, Baruch Hashem. I'm stressed because it's back to school season and my kids need all their school supplies and their uniforms and everything else. Baruch Hashem, I have these kids, Baruch Hashem, they're in school. All these brachas, they come along with a certain amount of stress. So that's the midah of haid. Whenever there's, that little bit of aggravation, irritation, annoyance, just flipping it, getting into a haid space, you start to feel the joy, you start to feel appreciation for all the brachas that you have. Okay, now let's talk the sixth midah, the midah of yesod, which means connection or relationships. It's how I am able to take, my inner state, my emotions, and express them to another person in order to build that connection and build that relationship. When do we most need to call upon the midah of yesod? Well, it could be when we're feeling lonely, disconnected, isolated. Whenever I'm just feeling a little out of sorts, I'm not feeling so connected to the people around me, that's when I need more of the midah of yesod. And the foundation of all our connections really is our connection to Hashem. So whenever I'm feeling that sense of being lonely and being disconnected and being isolated, let's work on first accessing our deep-rooted connection to Hashem, because that's first and foremost. That's the first and foremost relationship. If I feel connected to Hashem, that is the tool that I can connect with everyone else and everything else around me. So whenever you're feeling a little weak, a little disconnected, a little lonely, that's when you need to call upon the midah of yesod and feel like I'm a Yid, I'm connected to Hashem, I'm connected to the Rebbe, I'm connected to other Jews. I'm always going to be part of Klal Yisrael. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what, doesn't matter when. I'm always connected. A Yid is always connected to his source. That's the midah of yesod. When we feel disconnected to a child, sometimes we have those guilt, shame, blame, fear messages. You're neglecting that child. You're ignoring that child. You're not spending enough time with that child. Take away the guilt, shame, blame, fear messages, and let's turn it around and say, I want to connect to my child. I want to spend some time just connecting. Sometimes when a child is, being a little more nudgy, and while you're washing the dishes or trying to get something else done, you stop and connect with the child, and then for 5 minutes later you're able to get your job done. Very funny, when my kids were little, when they were babies, I used to do a lot of work on the computer, and they figured out very early on that the way to get to my attention was to grab the hand that was holding the mouse. You know what a mouse is? Desktop, old-fashioned technology. If they could get control of that mouse, then they have mommy's attention. They figured that out. They're so little, like a year and a half. They figured out that's the key. They can get mommy away from that mouse. So sometimes just disconnecting from whatever it is that's grabbing our attention at that moment, and putting our attention back to our child, even for a few minutes, and they have that need filled, and then you can go back and do the task, that needs to be done. If you're feeling ignored, left out, misunderstood by others, you can tap into that midah of yesod. Feeling our essential bond with Hashem. Hashem is always with us, always connected. There's a famous story of Mayor of Primuzlan, that the mikvah in his town was on the top of a steep hill, and in the winter it was very icy. And all the people in the town, they would have to go around the mountain in order to climb where it was less steep. But he used to just walk straight up the side of the mountain. And there was once some, hooligans in town, and they were making fun, like, how could this old Rav be able to do that? And they started to climb, and they just slid right back, and they injured themselves. And they came through Mayor Primuzlan, and they said, how's it that no one in town is able to get up this hill except for you, and you're able to just walk straight up? And he answered the very famous words, As min zugebunden Eidbin fällt man nicht unten. When we are connected above, we don't fall below. That means he always had that connection to Hashem that protected him, and he was able to walk with confidence Doesn't matter how slippery, and he's able to get straight up to the top. So when we have that essential connection, the midah of Yisod, the essential bond and connection to Hashem, we will not fall, we will not slide, and we will not slip. We're getting to our last midah, which is the midah of Malchus. What does Malchus mean? Malchus means royalty. Malchus represents Shabbos. Malchus is Mashiach. So remember, Malchus does not have anything of its own. Malchus only absorbs the energy from all the other midas, and Malchus is the Malchus of the lower, of the higher level becomes the Kesser of the next level. So it actually gives birth to the next level. So it represents actually the feminine energy to be able to give birth to another child. So it receives from all the other midas, just like Shabbos receives the energy from the 6 days of the week. We don't make anything on Shabbos. We don't cook anything on Shabbos. If it's after Luchbenshin and I realize, oh, I didn't cook the eggs. Okay, we won't have eggs at Shabbos. I didn't turn on the light or off the light, whatever it is. Whatever you did Erev Shabbos, that's what you have for Shabbos. Finished. It's all over. But we can sit and relax because we know that our work was done. So what is that midah? When do we need that midah of, that's it, everything's done? Could be when you're in a situation where there's no guidebook, there's no real rules to follow. You're in a situation that is very new to you, or you have to deal with a situation where your plans change suddenly, and now I have to adapt with a completely different situation. I have to change my mindset completely. And I'm in this situation. I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know where to go. I don't know where to turn. It's a totally new situation. It's something unexpected. It could be something positive. It could be something negative. I don't want to go too much into the negative examples. But I'm dealing with a completely unexpected new situation. And whatever tools, whatever rules I was following till now, this is something completely new. And I just kind of have to sit back and be open and say, Hashem, whatever's going to happen, it's all going to be in your hands. That is the midah of Malchus. So when do we need to call upon that strength? So when we're in either a crisis, something very negative happened, or it could even be in a positive sense. All of a sudden I'm in a new situation. Totally, I don't know exactly. I don't have a guidebook. I don't have a rule book. I'm just following the situation as it unfolds. I am just accepting Hashem's guidance in this situation. He's going to lead me in the right direction. Sometimes, it's really scary. It's really scary to let go. It's really scary to let go of control. But we feel Hashem's guiding hand. So we just adapt that midah of Malchus. So another personal example, just happened a few weeks ago. I wanted to send my child to day camp. She didn't want to go. She was not interested in going to day camp. I happened to have the day off work that day, so I said, okay, I'm just going to sit with her. I'm going to see what happens. I sat with her. First she's, going in a little bit closer. It went back and forth, not wanting to go in, but, doing step by step, until eventually she started going every day happily. So that was a situation where it was just a total relinquishing of control. What's going to happen in the end? Is she going to end up going to day camp? Is she not going to go? I don't know. I have to just be ready to accept the situation as it unfolds without trying to control it, without trying to, do this, do that, try this, try that. It just, okay, whatever is going to happen, Hashem, I accept that this is the way it's going to happen. Hashem is going to give us the keiches, Hashem is going to give us the wisdom to be able to go forward in this situation. So that is the midah of Malchus, and when we most need it is, when we feel really maybe confused, discombobulated, unsure in a situation. That's when the time to sit back, to open ourselves up and say, Hashem, you're in charge. Hashem, this is all up to you. So thank you to everyone that made it this far in the class. And now I want to talk about introducing a new course that I'm going to be offering starting next week on Tu B'Av. It's called From Stress to Bless. So Tu B'Av is the beginning of the season. It's the beginning of the Chodesh Elul preparation for Rosh Hashanah season. Why on Tu B'Av? It says in Shulchan Aruch that starting from Tu B'Av, you start writing Ksiv Achsimat Teva on your letters. And it's the beginning of the process. So there are 6 weeks from Tu B'Av to Rosh Hashanah, and I want to make the most of the energy of that time. It's a very, very stressful time for mothers for a lot of reasons. There's the physical stress. We're combining back to school and getting ready for Yantif and wanting to make some kind of cheshbon and nefesh and figuring out everything, all these details. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra work. It's a lot of stress, physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. People being together, maybe traveling, maybe other people traveling to you. All these, complications, changes in our routine. And it's important to get ourselves into that mood, into that mindset, so we feel less of the stress of the Elul Tishrei season and more of the brachas and more of the joy. And it takes work, but we can do it. So I want to introduce you to a 6-week class from Tu B'Av until Rosh Hashanah called From Stressed to Blessed. And we're going to go through step by step, learning some of the tools that we discussed. Each week it's going to talk about, based on the day, like we have Tu B'Av, and then we have, Chodesh Elul, Rosh Chodesh Elul, we have Chayil, we have a lot of very, very special days, and also the parshas of those weeks are also have, very, very important messages. So using the parsha of the week, using some of the teachings of that, the day, the time of the month, we're going to learn these skills, how we can go into the new year in this state of complete peace and calm and relaxation. Learn how to tap into our inner kirchas nefesh. We'll learn how to recognize our own needs and our child's needs. And Rosh Hashanah, it's a big thing. We're asking Hashem for our needs. We're asking Hashem for our physical needs. Rabbi speaks about this a lot. Why do we choose the most important day of the year, Rosh Hashanah, to daven for our physical needs? Remember last week we talked about the Eish Ruach Mayim Afar needs. We have to daven for them. That's part of our mission, our purpose for being in the world. So we're going to talk about that, how to meet our own needs, how to meet our child's needs, what to do when our needs conflict. We're going to discuss some of the practicalities of Tishrei. What are some tips? What are some tricks that we can use to get through Tishrei? So I'm at, a stage in my life where I have, already done a lot of these Tishreis. And I still have children in the home, but I've been through all those years of trying to adjust to Tishrei, of being, trying to figure out how do I have that spiritual Tishrei while still cooking all the meals and feeding them and doing everything and getting the Yom Tov clothes ready and all these different pressures. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about some of the skills that I learned, some things that helped me, that hopefully will also help now, a younger generation of mothers to do it positively and to do it happily without the voice of fear and blame and shame and judgment. How to do a cheshbon and nefesh. What does it mean to do a cheshbon and nefesh for, as a young mother? What are the areas to work on? How do we get all our minds straight between all the different things that we would like to work on? How do we prioritize? Parashas Re'eh, we talk about, changing our perceptions. How to access our different keiches, our different superpowers, so that we could change the perception of the events as they're unfolding. What's happening in my life? We have Parsha Shoftim. We talked about last week. We talked about the positive self-talk. We have these shofet and yates inside our brain that's judging us or telling us what we should do, what we shouldn't do. Learn how to tune into the helpful voices inside of your brain and not the judgmental voices. So there's a famous Sikha, Parsha Shoftim, the shofet and the yates. So we're going to learn about the roles of the shofet and the yates. Parshas Kiseitze is about going out, into Eretz Yisrael. So, to enter the land of Eretz Yisrael. So we're going to learn more about, about that whole process of, deciding on a plan of action. Kisavai, entering the land, starts with the mitzvah of Bikurim, and which is the mitzvah of gratitude. Of all the midas, that's really the foundational one. If we can learn how to get ourselves into a positive frame of mind through experiencing the emotion of gratitude. So that's going to be Parshas Kisavai, talking a lot more about emotional regulation and the central role of gratitude. Parshas Nitzavim has a famous pasuk Kikarev, which, as we talked about last week, is really the foundation of Tanya. It's the foundation of this course, the foundation of our lives. This is all accessible. We could do this. We need a support system. We need to create an internal support system. We need to create an external support system. So in the week of Rosh Hashanah, which is the week before Rosh Hashanah, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the different meanings of the word Kikarev and how to create that support system. Anybody that's interested in signing up for this course, it's going to be $250 for a 6-week course. I'm going to share the link for you to sign up. And we'll have 6 weeks of Zoom classes discussing each one of these themes to get us ready for Rosh Hashanah. 6 weeks from stressed to blessed, and I hope to see you there. And we're getting into Tisha B'Av, so I'm wishing all of you to have a happy and joyous Tisha B'Av, that the day of Tisha B'Av should be transformed into nothing but brachas, and we should go into it with positivity, and whether we're fasting, whether we're not fasting, which we won't be fasting. If we do fast, we should be able to do it with strength and with joy, and we should see this Galas Mashiach and Yavcho Yamim Elu L'Sasein U'Simcha. Thank you very much for joining, and have a good night.